Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever seen a relationship just absolutely unravel, like completely fall apart, simply because a family member, specifically a mother, comes to visit? It's a really intense dynamic. It leaves partners feeling totally burned out, super confused, and honestly asking themselves, who even is this person I'm dating? Well, today, we're going to unpack the hidden trauma and the systemic mechanics behind this. Let's see if we can decode this whole phenomenon together.
Okay, let's dive into this. Look at this quote from our source material. She has never fought with her mother, but she fights with me. It perfectly captures this incredibly painful paradox that leaves so many partners just completely baffled. You've got this situation where a partner suddenly starts picking totally unreasonable fights, actively looking for conflict over literally nothing, and seemingly destroying the relationship from the inside out. But with the mother themselves, complete and utter peace, not a single conflict. We're framing this as our central psychological mystery today. Why does the person they supposedly love the most suddenly become enemy number one, while the actual source of the tension gets a free pass? Let's figure this out.
Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, the mystery of the fight. Then, the system and the wound. After that, why you are the target, boundary versus retreat, concrete steps, and finally, the existential conversation. And I want to reassure you right now, we aren't just going to analyze this deeply painful situation with a ton of empathy for both sides, though we absolutely will do that, but we're also going to give you a structured, actionable path out of it.
All right, part one, the mystery of the fight. This is all about exactly when that tension actually begins. So according to the source material, the conflict absolutely does not start when the mother actually knocks on the door. No way. It starts way earlier, right during the weighing phase of the invitation. Think about these two totally different systems operating at the exact same time. On one side, you have the rational adult brain weighing basic logistics, right? Dates, travel, what's for dinner. But on the other side, you have a traumatized inner child weighing sheer survival. The second she even considers that invitation, her nervous system just snaps right back into an old, deeply defensive posture. She's bracing herself for a mother who never really felt safe. So the doubt, the fight, it isn't about logistics at all. It's a nervous system preparing for an emotional siege.
Moving on to part two, the system and the wound. To really get why this unexplainable fighting happens, we have to look at the hidden mechanics operating just beneath the surface. And that brings us to a really core concept from the source, the triangle mechanism. This is a systemic dynamic where the unbearable tension from an unhealed relationship with a parent is unconsciously redirected right onto a partner. And you might be wondering, well, why? It's because the tension simply cannot go to the mother. For that traumatized child, engaging in any real conflict with the parent is systemically dangerous. They learn super early on, be good or lose everything. That direct path is entirely blocked, so that massive tension, it just has to find another outlet.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept, the mother wound, is that it explains the absolute most agonizing part for the partner, which is the sheer rejection of their support. The source describes this as a deep-seated trauma where simply receiving care actually feels unsafe. The child learned they had to survive alone. So when you, the partner, reach out to offer some loving support during this super stressful visit, she literally can't tolerate it. Why? Because leaning into your support threatens the heavy emotional armor she desperately needs to keep herself standing while her mother is around. So tragically, she ends up striking the very hand that reaches out to help.
Which brings us to part three, why you are the target. This is where we tackle that immense burnout and figure out why you are the one catching all the blows. So here is the big question. Why are you the lightning rod for someone else's storm? You're trying so hard to be supportive, and yet you're getting hit from all sides. Well, when the mother is near, your partner completely slips back into a daughter role. She's constantly translating, she's dampening her own personality, essentially performing just to keep her mother happy. There are two systems pulling at her all at once, and as our source points out, the partner literally loses her during these days. The mother's claim was there first, right? So the partner loses out, and it leaves them feeling incredibly alienated.
But here is a truly profound, almost heartbreaking truth from the source material. You are the safest address in the house. Think about that. All that anger that wasn't allowed to be expressed for decades, it has to go somewhere. And the completely unreasonable fighting is, paradoxically, proof that you are her safe space. The tension is always going to choose the strongest connection, because directing that intense anger at you won't cause her entire world to collapse. Now, to be clear, that doesn't make the abuse okay, not at all, but it perfectly explains the psychological mechanics of why it hits you and not her mother.
Let's look at part four,
boundary versus retreat. It is perfectly understandable to want to just stop coming around when the mother visits, but we need to talk about how to protect yourself constructively.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really vital distinction. Look at the difference between setting a boundary and just retreating. The natural reaction when you're treated like a punching bag is to just vanish, right? To say, I disappear. That's a retreat. But if you just do a silent exit, you accidentally confirm her deepest, most painful trauma script, the idea that eventually everyone leaves her all alone. A boundary, on the other hand, says, I do not accept this behavior, and I need this to happen if I'm going to stay. A boundary actually forces the system to change. You absolutely must protect yourself, but you have to do it as an explicit boundary with conditions, not just a silent retreat.
All right, part 5, concrete steps and agreements. Let's get into the practical systemic interventions from our source to actually manage these visits and break this destructive loop.
So how do we actually handle this? It all starts with this one crucial metaphor. You have to have a conversation during that weighing phase we talked about earlier, right? Before the visit is even finalized, while her adult mind is still sitting at the table. And you address the pattern completely without judgment. The goal here is to make the mother the weather, and the two of you the crew. You see, the mother isn't some enemy you're attacking. She's simply the storm system that the two of you need to navigate and sail through together as a totally united front.
The source maps this out with a really clear chronological timeline. Step 1 is before the decision. That's when you have that collaborative conversation we just mentioned. Step 2 is during the visit. As a partner, you've got to lower your expectations here. Please don't try to forcefully pull her out of her daughter mode. Your job isn't to be the savior. Your job is simply to keep the harbor open for her to return to once the visit is finally over. And step 3 is long-term. She has to do her own work on her trauma.
Now, to actually survive the visit itself, the source suggests 3 specific agreements you must make before the mother even arrives. Rule number 1, a fixed duration with a hard end date. Open-ended visits are systemically terrifying for the inner child. Rule number 2, a 10-minute daily island just for the two of you, totally out of the mother's earshot. You need this to keep your partner line open while her daughter line is active. And rule number 3, you need a code word, a specific word to use when the tension starts escalating, acting as a quick, non-judgmental signal that says, hey, this is the wound talking right now, not us.
Which brings us to our final section, Part 6, the existential conversation. This is the most critical step for the relationship's survival. We're no longer talking about a standard relationship chat here. This is a conversation about existence.
So the crucial point is, if the burnout is severe, how do you actually structure this talk? Step 1, validate her deep struggle. Show her that you truly see her pain. Step 2, state your absolute limit, but do it without threats. Saying, I am burning out is not a threat. It's just a factual description of a lightning rod taking way too many strikes. Because understanding her wound is not a subscription to endure her outbursts indefinitely. And step 3, ask her to seek systemic therapy. You guys can have a great conversation, but that won't fix it, because you are inherently the target in this dynamic. She needs professional help. You're the partner, not the therapist.
And that leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought, directly from the source. The woman acting out under all this trauma and the woman you fell in love with, they are both real. The question isn't, who is she really? The real question is she willing to work on the part that is destroying you both? That is the ultimate boundary, and honestly, the only real path toward true healing. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep setting those healthy boundaries, and I'll catch you next time.